Rev up your engines! Today I'm going to tell you how you can discover whether your car's starter's starting to go out when your car doesn't start. And if it is bad, I'm going to show you how you can replace it, because this one I found out is bad the other day. But I'm going to show you how you can test it, because it doesn't necessarily mean your starter's bad if your car doesn't start. First thing, if you try to start your car and it just goes like that, doesn't turn it over fast at all and it won't start, or if you turn the key and nothing happens, or all you hear is a click, it can be the starter motor's bad. But before you spend money on an expensive starter motor, and some of them are a real pain to put on, this particular one isn't, but some are a royal pain, you want to check other things like this. Go to the battery, grab the terminals, see if they're loose or corroded. These are tight, so there's nothing wrong with it. Now, if you don't have corrosion or the cables aren't loose, it could still be a bad battery. So you get a battery tester. You hook the battery tester up, you can see 12 volt battery capacity, standard battery, cold cranking 550. This says 550, so here we go. We're going to test the battery. This battery's great, so it's got no problems. Now let's say you don't have a battery tester. It's a good idea to check it. This particular one is a Vident. There it is. IBT200 tester. It's like 50 bucks or something. They're real handy. But if you don't have one, you can get jumper cables, and if you got another car around, try to jump start your car. If it jump starts, that means your battery's not good. If you jump start a car and it does the same thing, either turns slow or just clicks or does nothing, that means that your battery's probably perfectly fine, because you're jumping it with another battery and it's got full power, so it should crank fine. If the starter's good, it will then start right up. But if the starter's bad, it'll do the same thing. So you can test it that way, but of course the tester's more accurate. So we're going to replace the starter. Now, always disconnect the battery. I like taking the ground off, so you don't short anything off when you're working on an electrical system. A lot of power goes to the starter, you disconnect the negative cable, then there's no longer a circuit and you can't short anything out. So we'll just get a 10mm socket and we'll take the ground off. Alright, now we can't short anything out. We'll just move it out of the way so it's not going to touch the battery terminal anymore. Now we got to find the starter. In this case, it's pretty easy. There's the starter. Right down here. Right there. There's just 2 bolts. If you get confused, look at your new starter. 2 bolts holding on. Now, if you can see right here, that's a 12mm bolt that holds it on. What you want to do is you want to take this off first, the big strap, because it's often tight. And if you take the starter off first, you won't have any leverage and the starter will bounce all over the place and you can't get this nut off then. So take that off first after you remove the negative battery terminal. Then you just take the cable and move it out of the way. Now, if you didn't remove the battery terminal, this touch metal would short out and damage stuff, but now it doesn't matter because the circuit's no longer complete and it won't hurt anything. Now, to get to the bottom bolt, we're going to have to jack it up to get enough leverage. It's hard to get the leverage from the top. And we'll put a jack stand under there too. Let's see, we can access the bolt on the starter better. There's more working room. Now it comes off easy. Then we go back to the top of the car, and there's 1 bolt left on the inside. Right there. So a 14mm bolt. In this case, we went a little bit longer extension because we can reach it from the other side. There's not much working room then tight, so we're going to stick it down here. You got to wheedle in between all this stuff. A little wiggling, maybe a little swearing. Then we hook this up. You got to break it loose. That's the hard part. Then the rest we can do with our bare hands. Then we can wiggle the starter and get it loose. Now realize there's still 1 wire on it. It's because now I can get it with a pair of pliers and can unclip it. It's very hard to unclip these wires until you get working room. But as you can see now, I was able to push it and get it off easily. If you try forcing that clip off when the starter's on the car, there's not much working room. You can break that plastic. It's just plastic. It'll crack. Then you're going to have to rewire it. Take everything off except for that. And then once you get the starter up, you can get an angle where you can get it off easily. Then with a bunch of wiggling and pulling, here's the old broken starter. Okay, so my Toyota Matrix starter finally broke. Hey, the car's 17 years old. Something's going to break eventually. Now, before you put the new one on, make sure it looks the same as the old one. And in this case, it looks exactly the same. Terminals are the same. Everything's the same. So we'll feed it back in the hole with a little wiggling. Usually it's easier getting it in because gravity's on your side. So you get the bottom side, the bolt there. Start tightening that up. Then the top with the extension on it. Get it super tight. And get the bottom super tight too. Wreck anything when you put it down. Remember to get the jack stand out. Power lead on here. You hear it click, and bolt the power wire on. And then tighten the bolt on here on the top. In this case, it's a 13. It was a 12 to begin with, but the replacement one is a 13. So I'm using a 13 millimeter socket. Be careful, because it's supposed to be 12, but the replacements often have a 13. Now, of course, it won't start, because we got to put the battery terminal back on, because now there won't be any problems. We'll get the battery terminal, stick it on. We'll make sure the negative terminal is nice and tight. A little bit loose on the top, so we'll tap it on first. Now it's nice, and we'll tighten it up. So let's see if we fix the problem. Voila! So you can see, replacing the starter on this isn't all that bad. Some cars are stinkers, especially if they're all-wheel drive. The starter usually hits the drivetrain of the four-wheel drive, and it's a pain. But in this case, it's a pretty easy job, and I take advantage of buying lifetime warranties. I got this one at an O'Reilly's Auto Parts store, and hey, just keep the receipt in your glove box like I do. Matter of fact, I forgot to do that, so it's in the glove box. And I'm going to put it in a little case that has all the information. Registration, car insurance, all that stuff. So if something goes wrong, I'll have it here, and I won't have to worry. So yes, even Toyota starters break down once in a while. I mean, the thing's 17 years old, what can you say? I'll take the starter back to O'Reilly's and get my $40 core back, showing you how you can fix your car when it doesn't start without paying somebody a small fortune. You can easily do it yourself, and take my advice, buy the starters like I did that have a lifetime warranty. If it ever goes out again, hey, but I mean, the original one lasted 17 years, so I guess I can't complain. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Row 3 says, which 2012 Honda Civic should I buy amongst these choices? One's an EXL model from Carvana with 96,000 miles, had 3 owners. Second is an LX or CarMax, which is 87,000 miles, and it only has 1 owner in the past. Okay, that's very simple. Get the one that only has 1 owner. They're about the same mileage, 96, 87, that's got less mileage. But why does the other one have 3 previous owners? Maybe it's been wrecked, flooded, who knows, stolen, something bad happened. If you can get a 1-owner car, it is always preferable to a car that's been owned by 3 people. Now, that said, you need a guy like me to check out any used car that you got, because you never know if it's wrecked, flooded, stolen, whatever, right? But they're both good cars. You don't want to buy a car that's had 3 previous owners. I had a guy once bought a Mercedes. He was the unlucky 13th owner of that car and was only 12 years old. I said, don't you think there's something wrong if there'd been 12 people before you that owned this car? And sure enough, it was a falling apart limit. Now, he only paid $3,000 for the piece of crap Mercedes, so it wasn't like he lost that much money, but you got to be logical. Don't buy a car that a whole bunch of people have had if you can buy a car that only one person had owned. It only makes total sense. They're both good cars, but I mean, why take a chance? With a 1 owner, you're generally not taking a chance. But with a 3 owner, that's 3 times the amount of things that might have gone wrong. And why was it sold 3 times? Probably because something went wrong. Somebody got in a wreck. Oh, I'm getting rid of it. And then somebody else finds out, oh, it's in a wreck. Or maybe they got it in a wreck again, and then they sold it. Well, if you're one of those people that puts one of those ring blings in, here it is, as your key goes in, you can put the bejeweled ring bling around your ignition. Don't do it. Your car may not start. It can block the signal coming from your key immobilizer to start your car. A lot of people don't know it, but it can. Now people are buying these bling rings on Amazon. They look cute, right? Stick them over the ignition switch and it's all shiny, but it can block the signal and your car won't start. This woman named Schiffer Steele says, I saw this and thought, well, it's cool. It's a small ring studded with sparkling rhinestones. They're just fun. I like blingy things. Until she stuck it in her key the next morning and the car wouldn't start. It blocked it from starting. So, you don't want to stick things around your ignition system. And that said, you don't want to have a whole bunch of keys either. Because if you have a bunch of keys on a key ring and you stick it in, they can interfere with each other. And I've seen that not start. On top of, if you got a car that's still got a key, right? You don't want to have a bunch of weight holding it because that can destroy the ignition switch. I've seen it happen. All that weight breaks it down. You only want to have a key or 2 or whatever sticking in there, not a whole bunch of weighted stuff and a screwdriver or a hammer or tools or stuff. And don't go putting these bling rings on your ignition system if you got a key, because it can block the signal from your key to the computer that allows you to start the car. So then I stopped saying it. If that little bling ring is on, it can block that signal and your car won't start. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.